So, David, in your position, you are advising businesses to scale up their operations in virgin to themselves territories, which itself is very interesting. What I wanted to start with is the report itself, because it brings light to what's happening at the moment. So amongst the economic, let's say, uncertainty, talent shortages, the report still shows that 3/4 of global leaders are looking to hire in other countries. Why is it that employers increasingly are reaching beyond borders to access top talent? Sure, they could easily shrivel because it's difficult, because it's tough. Why is it popular? Why do they want to do that?
Yeah, thanks, Malwina. And as you said, from the report, so we try and make all our decisions informed by data, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, and there's a lot of opinion around things like hybrid working, flexibility, and remote working. And quite often it's influenced very much by opinions or dictated by leadership. And what we try and do with our research is to try and get a view from both leaders and employees on how they feel about these things and why they may or may not want to approach it. So I think if we go back a few years, things like remote working or phrases like the future of work, as it was referred to very heavily, took a huge shift, as we all know, due to COVID, and it was kind of a black swan event that was forced upon the world of work. And at the time, people talked a lot about how the world of work will never be the same again, and people want different things, and they're driven by different motivations. And I listened to Robbie at the start of the day, and when he was talking about his family and his kids and things like that, and one of the things he talked about was the Great Resignation, and he said, remember the Great Resignation? And one of the interesting things from the data and the survey that we did was that we saw was that 88% of the employed professionals, right, not the leaders, but 88% of the employed professionals said that they are currently looking for a new job or plan to within the next 6 months. So that's almost 9 in 10 of the 5,500 employed skilled professionals that we surveyed. What that leads me to and why I think that's important is what I believe. And if there's one takeaway for anybody working in talent or recruitment that I speak to at the moment that I always try and reinforce with them is, I don't believe the Great Resignation took place. I don't believe it's happened yet. And I think it's actually coming our way. And when you think about the presentation that came previously where we talk around the D&I pushback and things like that, what a lot of companies have done is they've sacrificed employee well-being. They've sacrificed things like inclusion and belonging. And what they've done is they've replaced it with margin decisions, profit decisions, and very much business-focused decisions, which are important and they can be necessary. But what that's led to is the people who have been left in a lot of these businesses didn't leave because they're happy there. They stayed because of the economic uncertainty that you mentioned, the lack of opportunity elsewhere, and for want of a better term, a lot of these places, they don't feel like they're part of the family anymore, and they're not really drinking the Kool-Aid of a lot of these companies. So what we're seeing in our research is that the companies that don't transparently communicate effectively to people, that don't offer opportunities to get access to a more culturally diverse team, and that don't reconsider their application and the focus on things like diversity, inclusion, and belonging are only feeding into that Great Resignation, and they're at risk of losing a very high percentage of your skilled workers. The ones that you didn't want to let go during layoffs and the ones that you wanted to hold on to are the ones who are at risk of walking out the door themselves. And I think it's really, really important for people to understand that what we see is that this is imminent. Then from a leadership perspective, what leaders really see is that global growth and moving into other countries is a really key factor. 80% of the executives that we surveyed said that being able to access talent quickly and effectively in more markets was a really key business strategy for the growth that they need to see to compensate for some of the loss in revenue and market share over the last couple of years. So the combination of the employee demands and also the market factors are swaying both employees and employers towards wanting to work in a company that offers them that culturally diverse option and the access into new markets.
Brilliant. Okay, very good. And that brings us to another thing, because like it's easy to say, let's grow, let's expand, let's research and just try to do our best here. But reality is often slightly harsher than the idea and the concept. And actually your survey or report proves that as well, that a third of leaders that you were speaking to find it, if not really difficult, but at least challenging to, first of all, attract talent and then effectively hire talent in new territories, in those virgin markets that they are not very well known and used to be legislating for. So if this is on the agenda, if this is a really good idea to potentially expand, how those companies can get ready, like mentally ready, physically ready, how they can make the experience, well, it's always going to be slightly difficult, but easier, shall we say, to land in a positive manner and basically learn maybe on somebody else's mistakes if possible.
Of course, yeah. There's multiple things to consider, and I know a lot of people in this room will have more experience with it than I do, but when you're looking to try and understand how to go about something like this, it really starts with the leadership level. And one of the big takeaways that we saw from the survey is that it's actually a mindset amongst leadership that's the biggest resistance to this. Despite there being the market factors and the opportunity, that drive to ensure that people are actually back in the office and working closer together and is actually also proving to be a huge barrier to the businesses then looking to expand. Because with expansion, and if you want to do it quickly, quite often the first roles in certain countries are roles that may need to be done remotely, or the type of talent that you're looking for are people who don't want to be forced back into an office. So really, there's multiple things, and I would always say engage with partners or companies that can help you with this. And the things that are really important and the biggest blockers that companies see is access to being able to understand what a really good competitive salary or benefits package looks like, and being able to generate locally compliant employment contracts that are maybe also in the local language, and making sure that everything you're doing is compliant, and your aversion to risk, not misclassifying workers, things like that, and then being able to benchmark salaries, identify what the cost of employment is, and really importantly, identify where the talent exists. So if you can work with partners that can help you, one, identify 2 or 3 locations where the talent exists, then be able to benchmark the salaries and the cost of employment in those countries, and then be able to help you to access the talent in the country where the best opportunity is, you've removed most of the barriers. Getting over the leadership barrier then of actually convincing them that it's a good way to do this and it's a good approach, despite maybe wanting to move a little bit quicker or not getting people into an office, is actually proven to be a bigger barrier to some companies.
So it sounds really like this is where your time should go, right? I mean, there's things that can be in a way trusted upon somebody else, the more kind of operational things from what you said, like finding the legislation and things like that. And if time is of the essence, then you should be putting that time where it mattered the most. So with your people, with your leadership, with people who are going to be actually driving the business forward.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that it really needs to be a policy decision now within companies, and the policy needs to be fluid because nobody knows the right answer. People want flexibility. It's not about I want remote, I want hybrid, I want this. Everybody's different, and it's really about having a flexible approach and being able to, as I said, there's certain positions and certain roles that are critical for companies where the talent doesn't necessarily exist here or it doesn't exist within your market, and it's really important to be able to access that talent in other regions and offer them the flexibility. I think one of the other key takeaways was 81% of the people that we employed that simultaneously said that they were also looking to move role, also said that they would be interested when they move in moving to a company that offers them that. So I think one of the other key takeaways was 75% of people said that they would gladly give up another benefit to swap it out for the option of flexibility. So if we think of all the things that we've always considered as key drivers and motivators for people to want to join your company or for you to retain them, whether that's, a payment benefit, holiday benefits, any of those things, they would gladly replace one of those traditional benefits and replace it with flexibility. So it is a really key driver and a motivator. So overcoming that mindset, understanding and putting a policy and a plan in place about how to approach this is going to be important. And I know a lot of companies are moving in the other direction. your people are going to start going the other way, and it's really important to think about that.
Okay. And let me touch on the changes, because obviously we have turbulence in our major theme today. We can't have a conversation without, obviously, AI, because that's here, whether we like it or not, and it's affecting our business lives, well, personal as well, actually. And the reason I'm asking you, because you have quite unique access to information, right? So on one hand side, you are looking at employers, leaders, executives globally, pretty much everywhere. And on the other hand, you are talking to highly skilled professionals, also worldwide. So I'm just wondering, the two cohorts of people, are they equally excited or not, or equally prepared or not, when it comes to uses of AI, potential uses of AI in their work lives?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. What I'd actually say is they're equally unprepared for something that is already here. So if you're a HR leader or a policy leader, and part of your job is to protect your business from risk, and you don't think the people in your teams anywhere in your business are using AI to help guide their decision making, then you're absolutely wrong. Right through from sales to HR to legal, and I talk about going global and looking in other countries. What a lot of HR people are doing is they're actually using things like generative AI to give them answers on how to answer questions about policies in countries where they don't have the experience. And remember, generative AI gets its information from the input that goes in from humans, so it's not always accurate, and you might get a different answer from each different type of generative AI. So it's really important that you have policies and guardrails in place to be able to deal with that, so you make sure that the information going in and coming out from these tools is not causing you any risk. Secondly, what's really interesting, and you mentioned turbulence, and I know that's one of the themes. When I think of the word turbulence, what I believe leads to turbulence is resistance. So it's resistance to something causes it to feel turbulence. And there's resistance on both sides to AI, and that's where the challenge is. Almost 60% of the employees we surveyed believe that it benefits employers better than them, and almost 60% of the executives we surveyed said it benefits employees better than the business. So employees think it's going to replace them. Employers think it's better for employees and makes them more productive. So what that means is nobody thinks it benefits them, so everybody's resistant to it. And when everybody's resistant to it, we try and avoid it, which means we don't put policies in place, we don't try and educate ourselves around it. And what I believe is no matter what your role is, AI will be an enabler. And ultimately, no matter what your job is in the business, is you want to be an enabler for the business. But the only way you can be an enabler is if you're sure and certain that the things people are doing and using is being done securely, compliantly, and effectively with your knowledge and oversight. So I would encourage people to really try and understand it. I think I heard on a podcast recently as well that they did a course with some kids in America. They did like a 9-week AI course, and it was a really basic, high-level AI course. But those kids still know more about AI than 95% of the working population. So it's that's how little we know about it. But that's how easy it is to become almost an expert in it, right? So anybody can do it, anybody can learn about it. I would embrace that rather than resist it.
Very good. And just to round off our conversation, because time is flying when you're having fun, just wanted to finish it on the human note, because I'm a believer, I think, similarly to you, that it's still humans assisted by AI. I read a phrase that I think is really reflective of where we should strive, where we should go to be successful. Because, as leaders, we're all managing a lot. Busy calendars, business goals. Now we're trying to tackle AI, embrace it, adapt it, this, that, and the other. But the phrase reads, how to become globally minded, but same time employee-centric type of leader to bring your business to the next level. Is it possible? How is it possible? Are there any first steps that can get us onto the right path of globally minded, yet employee-centric?
It's something that's really challenging, and it's a thing that a lot of companies struggle with. Two words that I think ring true, no matter what context they're used in the world of work, is communication and transparency. That's what's really, really important. And what that leads to is a feeling of belonging. And I believe that when people feel like they belong, they will contribute and they will feel part of the company and the journey, no matter where they sit in the organization, whether that's sitting in the head office or sitting at home. There's tools, there's methods, there's ways to make those people feel like they belong. And by including them in decisions, including them in things that are happening outside of their remit, and being really transparent and open in your communication about things that are happening outside of where they're sitting, I mean, that human connection for me is crucial, and it's, there's no golden ticket, or there's no piece of technology that you use or one thing that it is. It's just making sure and continuing to ask yourself the question, are we delivering this message in a way that it touches everybody and making those people feel like they belong as part of this company? And if it doesn't do that, then HR professionals should be involved with each part of the organization. The sales leaders have a message to deliver. They work with HR, they figure out the best way to do it, they make sure everybody who needs to hear it is included, and you create a space for questions and conversation. And that's the same whether people are in an office, out of an office, wherever they are. So that never goes out of fashion.
Brilliant. Listen, that's what we have time for.